What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to talk about a few interesting Destiny 2 things. We're going to look at some of the hints about the raid coming in the Curse of Osiris expansion, which are actually pretty telling at this point. I also wanted to talk about ornaments and some things we've learned about progression for them in Season 2, which is pretty cool. I'm also going to touch on the second expansion for Destiny 2, and I also wanted to round up some new things we know about the Xbox One X and potential enhancements for Destiny 2. So firstly, I wanted to talk about the raid coming in the Curse of Osiris expansion. This has been described as raid content in numerous different places, and of course there's been a lot of speculation as to what that will mean because it doesn't necessarily sound like a brand new raid when they refer to it that way. There's also been speculation about whether this could be a return to VOG. We've had leaks about potential returning locations recently, and some people think it could just be an update to the Leviathan raid, and we have a bunch of clues here and information that can tell us a little bit about what we can expect here. So the first thing I'd point out is a quote inside of the PlayStation blog where they say a new quest, mission, strikes, adventures, and raid activity will soon make Mercury feel like your new home for the long term. So obviously they've made that direct link between the raid and Mercury, so it's really interesting that they've said that. But then in This Week at Bungie, something which kind of went unnoticed for a little while is that they actually had a screenshot of 6 Guardians queued up in a fire team in orbit over Mercury. So they're actually showing off a community mentors emblem that you can be rewarded by Bungie. Now obviously there are no 6-player activities in Destiny 2 outside of the raid. Even if you were in Crucible, you know, that's a 4-player activity as well. The only way to actually be on Mercury right now is inside of a PvP map, and it is entirely possible that the fireteam leader had played a game on the Mercury PvP map, gone to orbit, and then invited all of these other players in. But in a blog post full of reveal information and conversation about Curse of Osiris, it would be pretty ridiculous for Bungie to kind of fabricate this image, you know, if it didn't actually pertain to what was coming in the future content. It's also worth remembering that the Bungie Weekly Update is technically a press release, and everything inside of it is very heavily curated and kind of intentionally placed there. So between the statement in the PlayStation blog and what we see here on the Bungie Weekly Update, some takeaways from this would be that it's very unlikely that the raid content they're referring to is a Leviathan update, for example. It could, however, mean some other things, so a 6-player activity that isn't the raid and takes place on Mercury, and one possibility would be 6-player patrols, for example, but I don't think that's what we're seeing here. This is a direct tease to a raid on Mercury, in my opinion. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think down in the comment section. Up next, I wanted to talk about armor ornaments that we'll be seeing inside of Season 2. So Bungie actually previewed some of the Iron Banner gear and the other faction gear that we can unlock after Season 2 begins, and they loosely refer to the fact that these will be unlocked primarily through actual gameplay. Now, a user on Reddit posted that they played the Crucible demo, which was available at Paris Games Week, and they gave a description of how a new ornament will be unlocked inside of this expansion. The Reddit post was actually later deleted, but I will link it in the description below and you can see some of the comments on it and stuff like that. But there's a description for a new ornament type, so Phoenix Battle Ornament, and this is something that will go in the modification slot, but it says defeat enemies in the Crucible during Season 2 to earn this ornament. It is unlocked to the Sword Flight, Phoenix Strike Type 0, and Ankasika leg armor. So what that tells us is that there will be new ornaments in the game, just like Bungie referred to, which will be unlocked through actual gameplay. Interestingly, this particular ornament sounds like it can be applied to multiple different types of gear, but obviously will have a different appearance on all of the gear pieces. But it sounds like a start to some of the more horizontal progression that I think people want to see in the game, and it's definitely good if there's more stuff like this. Hopefully we'll also see more meaningful changes to stats and mods on armor pieces, but a Bungie dev did confirm in an interview that there will be new mods as well as new gear and everything like that for people to chase, and of course we can expect to learn more about that stuff in the Bungie live streams. And I will leave a link to Bungie's Twitch channel where they now have an events calendar and you can get reminders for all of these streams and check out what's coming in this expansion. Moving on, I wanted to touch briefly on the second DLC coming for Destiny 2. Of course, in the reveal for Curse of Osiris, we also now see the icon for the next expansion. Initially, there was a rumor that this had been delayed until the autumn of 2018, but it has since been confirmed that this will drop in the spring of 2018, so it's not going to be a whole year or anything like that. There was previously a supposed leak on the Japanese PSN store where they actually listed expansion 2 Gods of Mars, and that was very promptly taken down, so that is a potential name for this expansion. Of course, it could change, it could not be true, but there's been a lot of speculation about the image that we see for this expansion, where we see what looks like a female hunter, and they're sporting this kind of crest of a wolf on their gauntlet armor piece right there, and naturally people started jumping to conclusions as to what this could actually mean, and there are 2 distinct possibilities that people have been talking about. So the first one is that this relates to the Iron Banner, and that the character we're seeing is Lady Aphrodite. Of course, previously we've seen some interesting interactions between the Iron Lords and Rasputin and the War Mines, especially inside of the Rise of Iron expansion, but the wolf or the crest that appears on this armor piece actually looks a lot more like the strength of the pack icon that we saw on a Hunter Cloak in Destiny 1, and the description for this item was a pattern worn by Anna Bray during the fateful battle of Twilight Gap. Of course, Anna Bray was part of Clovis Bray, which we learned a fair amount about inside of Destiny 1. Clovis Bray were actually responsible for the development of Siva, and obviously then again you get those kind of links to the War Mines and the crisis that happened in the Plaguelands and the Cosmodrome. So we don't have any real confirmation yet, but it is pretty interesting stuff. There were lines from Laxmi in Destiny 1 from FWC that referred to Anna Bray actually having been deceased, so that leaves a lot of very interesting questions about the hunter in this image and the icon that we see. But of course, Aphrodite is someone that we saw appear in the Rise of Iron expansion as well, and up until now has just kind of vanished completely. Either way, it's looking like this expansion is going to involve at least one of those characters, and if you want to hear more about that kind of lore, I definitely recommend that you go check out My Name is Bife's video about it, as well as Mylan Games video. They do some really cool stuff. Now, something kind of unrelated that I wanted to point out is a potential issue with the Cayde stash chests that you find in various locations. So a user called A Clever Lettuce posted to Reddit some interesting findings about these Cayde chests, and it turns out that the bottom of these chests aren't always actually solid. I can give you an example of this right here. I opened this chest in the European Dead Zone, and as you can see, the loot, this blue engram, just completely drops through the bottom of the chest and falls onto the ground below me, and I can't actually go down there because it's an out of bounds area. And it's looking like most of these chests actually suffer with the same issue, so if you're not standing kind of really super close to them, then your loot is kind of dropping through the ground. Obviously, different chests are in different locations, and this can vary a little bit, but it could explain as to why at least some of these chests don't appear to be rewarding loot. However, having said that, I still think there are some other issues with these chests that need to be addressed. Of course, Bungie have all of these different kind of farming lockouts going on in the game as well, but I thought it was just interesting to point out there have been numerous reports of the loot from these chests actually just completely dropping through the ground, and that's one of the reasons why people appear not to be getting loot from them. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is the Xbox One X. Of course, there has still been no news about Destiny 2 enhancements for this console. People who've received kind of review consoles and things like that have had whole bundles of games, including Destiny 2, actually with the console, but Destiny 2 continues not to be listed as an enhanced title for this console, so it's not necessarily going to run in 4K and things like that. Of course, it may still run in an upscaled 4K, and the only real news we have about this previously is that Microsoft employees had stated that they gave dev teams for AAA titles all the tools that they needed, and it would be more up to the devs to actually enhance the games. And a Microsoft employee added that games like Destiny 2 will run better regardless of enhancements, simply because the console is more powerful. And considering the kind of exclusivity link that Destiny has with PlayStation, it's starting to look like there won't be specific enhancements for this game. However, there is some evidence of Destiny 2 actually performing better on the Xbox One X versus a normal Xbox One. So of course, they stated the fact that it has more power is just going to mean things are smoother for both PS4 and Xbox consoles in general. Inside of certain public events and big spaces, whenever things are getting a bit wild, we're seeing pretty crazy frame drops on the consoles. But there is a Reddit post from someone who's actually played Destiny 2 on the Xbox One X. They actually won the console with the game, which is pretty crazy, and they have posted some videos of gameplay to their YouTube channel, which I will link in the description below. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's very obvious that inside of public events, when there are a ton of particle effects, explosions, people using supers and things like that, the game and the amount of frames that they're getting and everything is much more stable on the Xbox One X because of that additional power. So for anyone interested in those consoles, it definitely seems there are tangible performance benefits to the game outside of enhancements specifically. That is currently all we really know about Xbox One X, and we'll have to wait and see if there is any additional news at any point. But that is going to sum up this video, guys. Just a look at a whole bunch of interesting stuff. I hope you've enjoyed it as always. If you have, a like and comment below is appreciated. Let me know any of your thoughts or theories on what we've spoken about. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more Destiny 2 content as well. But for now, you guys have an awesome day.